my God. Did folks get a chance to get coffee? Okay, so there's coffee, there's water. We are going to start the panel like in 1 minute. In 1 minute. So I want to make sure that, folks are attentive. We're going to have folks in the panel share some stories that are, deep stories. So this panel is particularly around imperialism and women. And I'm just going to introduce the moderator, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for a bit, Olivia Canlas. She is from Affirm, which is a transnational feminist organization that has been doing a lot of work, particularly against sex trafficking, has been doing a lot of work around reclaiming what working class feminism looks like today. And so I'm very, very honored to welcome her in her role of moderator for this panel. A very, very important panel given the historical and political context in which we are living. And so, Olivia.
Yay. Are we starting? Hello, everyone. How are you? Am I supposed to be hearing translation?
Not right now.
Oh, okay.
So let me make that announcement. So we are only going to use translation for one speaker, which is the only speaker that will be speaking in Spanish in the panel, which is Nieves Aires. And so once Olivia presents her, you will be hearing translation with your equipment. And I believe that the channel is 2. If you could please put the volume up once you turn on the transmitter, that would be great. Are we good? Okay. So, Olivia, don't worry about translation until after you present Nieves.
Okay. How is everyone tonight or this afternoon? Well, great. So thank you, Claudia, for the introduction. I just wanted to follow up on that. So Affirm is a transnational feminist grassroots organization, and we trace our lineage to political prisoners, ex-women political prisoners from the Marcos dictatorship in the Philippines. Currently, our membership also includes survivors of sexual violence, family survivors of extrajudicial killings, as well as we've had some of our members also politically targeted in this current climate. So I think that this is an incredibly important conversation that we're having today. And thank you, People's Forum, for hosting and organizing it. So I'm just going to go through the overview of how we're going to be doing this panel. We have 4 amazing panelists here today. They're each going to have 15 minutes to speak on a topic of their choice related to imperialism and its impact on women. And then I'll introduce them. I'll say their bio right before they speak. But just generally, we have at the very end Mandy Carter, who is a civil rights activist and organizer. Kathy Rojas, who is part of People's Congress of Resistance. Nieves Aires, who is from Peña del Bronx, and Trabajadoras por la Paz. Sorry, my Spanish is shaky. Okay, and then we also have here Ariel Gold of Code Pink. So I just wanted to give, yes, a round of applause to everyone that's here today. I think it's going to be an incredibly important conversation to hear the personal narrative around this issue of imperialism and state violence because it seems so distant. So I was just going to give an overall context and framing of what imperialism is for those of you who may not be familiar. So we're seeing like the wildfires in California being worsened by climate change. Entire communities have actually burned down and disappeared. Yet, we are still seeing migrant workers working on the fields, inhaling dangerous toxins, smoky air, etc. And then we also have, I heard earlier from the panel, someone mentioned the caravan that is happening at the southern border and the hyper-militarization that is happening. And the reason why many of these Central American refugees are coming here in the first place is due to U.S. military interventionist policies. So that's one. And then I also wanted to mention just an overall definition of what imperialism is and how we're defining imperialism. So building empire does not happen overnight. The way that we're defining imperialism is generally as an ideology and the process of gaining control and domination over the land, economics, politics, and social fabric of a community. So how does that play out? Particularly as it pertains to women, it shows up as violence against the environment, violence against women, and violence against our communities. In other words, we're seeing the systematic destruction and campaign to basically incapacitate countries worldwide and make them reliant on the imperial power. So how is this connected to state violence? How is it connected to militarism? Something that was explored earlier in this panel. The way that it's connected is militarism is an enforcer of imperialism. We know that the history of the United States has been built on Native American genocide, slavery, oppression of women, and the invasion of foreign lands. And to consolidate this power, the United States, which we can draw reference to, and it's not limited to the United States, has waged war in other countries and used state violence against its own people to protect and maintain white supremacy and male-dominated power beyond its borders. This has often left our women, our children, and marginalized communities of the global south most vulnerable to the impact of globalization, corporate greed, and the concentration of financial and political power of the 1%. So the impact of imperialism is global, it is national, it is local, it is beyond borders. This means that when we're talking about fascism here in the United States, it's also helping the global rise of fascism worldwide. So when you're looking at countries like Brazil, the Philippines, North Korea, our own president is helping to justify the spread of fake news and information, the political repression of dissent, and then the traditional gender binary roles under a macho and militarized regime. So anyways, the point of this panel is to explore the strands of imperialism and how it impacts the panelists' specific communities. And I just wanted to mention the framework that I'm operating under. I know I'm the moderator, but I'm also not entirely a neutral moderator, as you can tell. And I think that the topic itself, I mean, this can be like an entire, class and book, probably a series of books. But we're coming from, as a firm, we're coming from a transnational feminist perspective. So what does that mean? That means coming from one or more histories, one or more cultures, and one or more languages. And then when we're looking at intersectionality, which is a framework that's oftentimes used here in the US, coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, we're also trying to understand how that's connected to race, how that's connected to class, and how that's connected to gender. And then specifically when it comes to women, we're trying to see how under imperialism, the industrialization and the globalization of women's work, the redefinition of women's work under capital is constantly shifting, and how, the most marginalized communities are relegated to certain jobs and types of work that are oftentimes low wage, exploitive, and dangerous. So that is just an overview of imperialism and its impact on women. And I wanted to start by introducing Nieves Iris. She is a former Chilean political prisoner and works with the organization Trabajadoras por la Paz. And I think that her story will speak for itself. So thank you. Let's give a round of applause for her. I think this is the time where you plug in your earphones.
No se asusten de ver esto. Yo hago, como estoy viejita, hago mi escrito, porque si no se me olvida. Lo que voy a relatar es la violencia de Estado y del imperialismo y el capitalismo en Chile y en el resto del mundo. Yo voy a contar mi experiencia, ya que la viví y que hasta este momento, compañeros que estaban traduciéndome un poco, no se podían imaginar que hubieron esas torturas y que las siguen habiendo. Primero, para ser feminista hay que ser anticapitalista y antiimperialista. Eso hay que tenerlo bien clarito. Me tocó nacer en Chile, en Sudamérica. Allá tuvimos un 11 de septiembre de 1973, como aquí en Estados Unidos, un 11 de septiembre del 2011. Cada país tiene su 11 de septiembre. Provengo de una familia revolucionaria donde mis abuelos fueron fundadores de los primeros movimientos revolucionarios en Chile, en el norte del país. Y mi abuela Rosa Vélez y mi abuelo Félix Moreno son parte de esa historia. Por parte de mi mamá y de mi papá, junto al presidente Salvador Allende, fundaron el Partido Socialista de Chile. Mi abuelo, por parte de padre, Alejandro Aires, nació en México, era mexicano escocés, y él combatió junto al batallón San Patricio en México para votar a los gringos de México. Mis 5 hermanos, Alex, Rosita, Julián, Tato y Vicky, fueron militantes del MIR, del Movimiento de Izquierda Revolucionaria de Chile. Yo fui militante del ELN, del Ejército de Liberación Nacional de Chile, y del movimiento guerrillero que comandaba nuestro comandante Ernesto Che Guevara. Soy sobreviviente de ese movimiento y posteriormente militante del MIR. Mis hermanas Vicky y Rosita, Vicky, la que ha hecho el taller de los banderines, estuvo prisionera junto a mi hermana, y mis hermanos, el resto en la clandestinidad, junto a mi tía Amalia y mi tía Nieves. A mi madre nunca la pudieron detener, pero fue muy perseguida y amenazada. Fue de las primeras mujeres que denunció lo que pasaba en Chile con la dictadura cívico-militar de Pinochet. Además, pasaba de campo de concentración en campo de concentración, porque me iba a visitar a mí, a mi papá y a mis hermanos que estaban detenidos. Y resumo en una frase de lo que ella estaba viviendo y que quedó en la historia de Chile. ¿De qué sirve esta vida de mierda si no soy capaz de defender a los míos? Fuimos secuestrados por los servicios de inteligencia, estuvimos desaparecidos por meses y fuimos declarados prisioneros de guerra y prisioneros políticos de la dictadura cívico-militar de Pinochet. Fui detenida y torturada la primera vez que caí detenida, en septiembre y octubre de 1973. Y estuve ahí en la Escuela de Carabineros y en el Estadio Nacional, que fue un gran centro y cárcel de tortura de Chile. Salgo en libertad a mediados de octubre de 1973 y paso a la clandestinidad a unirme a la resistencia. Por segunda vez soy detenida en enero de 1974 junto a mi padre Carlos Orlando Aires y mi hermano menor de 15 años, Carlos Tato Aires, siendo en ese momento el prisionero político más joven de Chile. Él tenía 15 años. Estuve secuestrada y desaparecida en el centro secreto de Londres 38, el centro secreto y campo de concentración de Tejas Verde, la cárcel de mujeres de Santiago, el campo de concentración de Pirque y en la escuela militar y en el campo de concentración de Tres Álamos. Ahora voy a relatar a lo que yo viví, a lo que yo fui sometida y a lo que cientos y miles de mujeres lo vivieron y que hasta ahora sigue pasando. Porque hay gente que no cree lo que pasamos y lo que vivimos y lo que se sigue viviendo. Todo lo que relato está en la explicación que estoy dando de la violencia de Estado y tortura de Chile y de los Estados Unidos que han impuesto en nuestros países, y especialmente hacia la mujer. Primero, cuando llegan, te detienen, te desnudan, te vendan la vista con scotch y te encapuchan, te ponen una capucha. Te aplican shock eléctrico en todo el cuerpo, en los ojos, en los oídos, en la boca, en los senos, en la vagina, en el ano. No sé si usted alguna vez le ha dado un golpe eléctrico al ir a pagar el... Bueno, eso triplicado a muchas veces más durante mucho tiempo. Los shocks eléctricos son muy violentos. Muchas violaciones sexuales, fui sometida a muchas veces me violaron. En el baño, en la celda. Muchos militares eyaculaban en mi cuerpo desde la cabeza porque se juntaban muchos ahí. Entonces hacían sus fechorías sexuales y eyaculaban en todo el cuerpo. El sexo oral, violación anal, violación vaginal. Me introducían botellas de vidrio. En esa época, en el siglo pasado, habían las primeras botellas de Coca-Cola eran de este porte, que eran como de 1 litro, pero era un vidrio grueso, no sé si se acuerdan las que somos más viejas. Esa me la introducían por la vagina, y ¿sabe cuál era el objetivo? Para que yo sintiera el imperialismo, porque decía Coca-Cola. Me introducían sus manos, palos, fierros en el ano y en la vagina. Me colgaban desde el techo con cordeles de las manos, de la cintura, de las piernas. Es una cosa súper difícil mantenerse, uno trata de mantenerse el equilibrio, pero es muy doloroso. Tenía hielo. Simulacro de fusilamiento. Eso es terrible. Uno dice, bueno, simulacro de fusilamiento o electroshock, no sabe cuál es peor o mejor. Te ponen ahí, pues, en el paredón con todo y te tiran. Y uno cree que está muerto. Y como yo no sé cómo es la muerte, ¿me entendí? Es una sensación tan terrible, y después te das cuenta que estás viva, pero al rato después. Nos hacían teléfono, que consistía en romperte los tímpanos, que producían lesiones en los oídos. Nos metían en contenedores, esos barriles de petróleo, les ponían excremento y cosas en putrefacción y agua, y ahí nos metían y nos dejaban debajo del agua hasta cuando pudiéramos resistir. Bueno, yo logré resistir, pero muchos murieron. Y eso le llamaban los submarinos. Me hicieron el pavo de arara, que te amarran de las manos, de las piernas, y te cuelgan desde el techo, y uno queda en una posición, y por el ano te ponen un cable eléctrico. Esa es una tortura brasileña. En ese momento a mí me torturaban militares del Paraguay, de Brasil, de Argentina, de Perú. Al final me torturaron los militares chilenos. Todo esto producto de la operación Cóndor que creó Pinochet en concomitancia con todas las dictaduras que habían en el Cono Sur, como la de Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay. Me cortaron las orejas, eso se las mostraba, las orejas aquí las tengo cortadas. El vientre, con un yatagán me abrieron el vientre. Los senos. Nos ponían, ¿sabes lo que es? Con la gilet cortarte el seno y ahí ponerte alcohol y adentro ponerte el cable eléctrico, puta, un dolor horrible. Me rapaban la cabeza, nos cortaron a muchas sin dejarnos nada de pelo. Y uno dice, bueno, ¿qué es peor, el choque eléctrico o el que te corten el pelo? Pero resulta que es un órgano de las mujeres y cuando te ves sin pelo, te afecta, ¿ya? Me drogaban y me ponían el suero de la verdad, el famoso total, que es una inyección, que ellos dicen que de esa forma te podían sacar información. Me violaron con perros. Allá hubo una alemana que instruía a los perros, los adoctrinaban y nos violaban. No sé si cuando se acuerdan cuando fue la guerra, empezó la guerra en Afganistán y salieron en el New York Times las fotos de los militares con los perros. Eso lo hacían, eso es verdad. Y a mí me preguntaban, pues si eso hace 50 años atrás que lo hicimos y mucho antes y lo siguen haciendo. Y los otros militares que violaban y cuando sacaban a la gente así desnuda y les fotografiaban, imagínense, eso salió publicado en el New York Times, ¿hace cuánto? Como 10 años atrás. Me torturaron con una tortura que se llama la mariposa. Te ponen en una cama, te abren así de pies y de manos y te atan cuerdas aquí, pero apretado, y te empiezan a abrir así, y un dolor insoportable. Entonces después ellos sueltan los cables eso, y son, como la circulación empieza a funcionar, parece que son millones de agujitas que te están clavando. Y entonces en esa forma te empiezan a estirar, y así, en esa cama, me pusieron un tubo, y por la vagina me introdujeron ratas vivas, las que me produjeron el virus de la toxoplasmosis. Esas torturas las hacían y las siguen haciendo. Lo otro que fue muy terrible para mí fue cuando amarraron a mi padre desnudo, a mi hermano desnudo, nos amarraron y nos obligaban a tener relaciones sexuales. Yo sé que con ellos no pasó nada, pero el hecho de que te pongan a tu padre, a tu hermano amarrado y nos ponían electroshock y nos decían barbaridad y media sexuales, es muy fuerte. Me obligaban a ver las torturas de mi papá, de mi hermano y de los compañeros. Violaron a mujeres de 70, 80 años que estaban detenidas solamente para ver cuál era la reacción de una mujer de esa edad frente a la violación sexual. A las que éramos jóvenes, en edad reproductiva, en edad fértil, dieron la orden, los generales, de destruir nuestras vaginas para que no fuéramos reproductores de comunistas ni revolucionarios, y lo hicieron. Yo tengo muchas compañeras que las mataron en vida y que nunca más pudieron tener hijos. Yo, para poder tener a mi hija, me tuvieron que hacer de nuevo el útero y arreglarme para poder engendrar. Entonces, esa violencia de Estado es violencia antiimperialista. Siempre nos decían, las mujeres no deben meterse en la política. Y nosotros como mujeres reaccionamos en la tortura. Tú estás ahí aislada, amarrada en manos de ellos, pero se indignaban. Y entonces éramos torturadas doblemente por ser revolucionarias y por ser mujer. Producto de estas reiteradas violaciones a las que fui sometida por los militares, quedé embarazada. Y para cualquiera mujer, en cualquier lugar del mundo, en contra de su voluntad y en esas condiciones, es sumamente difícil. Aborté en forma espontánea, producto de las torturas a las que era sometida. Más o menos como a los 2 o 3 meses. Pero, para constatar el embarazo, producto de las denuncias que hizo mi madre y las compañeras, los generales mandaron a un doctor, el doctor Meri, que era militar, a auscultarme cuando estaba en la prisión. Y el hombre dice, sí, Nieves está embarazada, delante de la más compañera. ¿Y saben lo que me dice? Debe sentirse orgullosa de llevar un hijo de la patria. Ellos consideraban las violaciones y los niños que nacieron que eran hijos de la patria. Las compañeras no podían hacerme un aborto, ahí habían doctoras, habían enfermeras, parteras, porque si me hacían un aborto, yo me podía morir. Además, no habían condiciones en la cárcel para hacerme un aborto. Además, el aborto en Chile era penado 5 años y 1 día. Pero lo más increíble, como yo estaba en una cárcel religiosa cuidada por religiosas, tenía que pedir, si yo me quería hacer un aborto, la autorización al cardenal, la máxima autoridad eclesiástica, y el cardenal al Papa, para que el Papa me autorizara el aborto, Pablo VI. Y yo nunca he sido religiosa, así que igual por todos lados estaba bloqueada. Todo esto que estoy relatando es parte, instrucción y dirección de la violencia de Estado de Chile y del gobierno norteamericano. Hago este relato no para que me miren con lástima y digan, ay, pobrecita, sino que para que sepan lo que pasamos en Chile y lo que vivimos con una dictadura cívico-militar de Pinochet. Quiero que sepan que he podido sobrevivir y seguir activa en la lucha por la emancipación de la mujer, por mi familia, la comunidad, los doctores, mis compañeras, las compañeras de Trabajadoras por la Paz, mi hija Rosita Victoria, mi compañero Víctor Toro, mi nieta Carolina. Y el eterno homenaje de lucha y resistencia de mi madre Virginia, mi padre Carlos, mi tía Nieve y Amalia. También a la heroica Cuba revolucionaria, que fue el único país que pudo curar mis heridas, porque allá no me cobraban ningún peso y yo viajé todo el mundo y en todos lados era muy caro, porque allá la medicina es gratis. Así que mi salud y mi herencia física se la debo al fruto, al producto de la Revolución Cubana. También doy gracias a la vida, que me ha dado tanto, como dice Violeta. Acuso al gobierno norteamericano, a Kissinger, a Nixon y a todos los gobiernos que han venido después, por ser responsables de lo que ocurrió en Chile, de lo que ocurrió en Chile. Ellos ayudaron con armas y dinero y preparación militar en las escuelas de las Américas aquí en Georgia. Ahí entrenaron a todos los militares de Chile y del continente y de otros lados. Por eso que eternamente pedimos que se cierre la escuela de las Américas. El gobierno norteamericano tiene que pedir perdón e indemnizar a todas las víctimas de los desaparecidos, los encarcelados, los fusilados, los exiliados, como siempre lo hemos hecho. Soy una luchadora por la justicia social, por todas las causas de liberación, principalmente por los derechos de igualdad de la mujer y de los niños y niñas, por los inmigrantes, los indocumentados y los pueblos indígenas. Soy internacionalista y revolucionaria. Fui una combatiente de la resistencia chilena y latinoamericana hasta el día de hoy. Ahora en las entrañas del monstruo sigo luchando por construir un mundo mejor y una comunidad mejor para la humanidad. Ahora luchando contra esta oleada de fascismo que recorre el mundo y nuestro continente. A la vez denunciando el genocidio contra el pueblo indígena mapuche en Chile, dirigido por el presidente pinochetista Piñera. Seguiré luchando con todas las fuerzas de la historia. ¡Viva la resistencia de las mujeres! ¡Viva! ¡Viva la vida!
¡Que viva!
¡Ni una menos!
¡Ni una menos!
Thank you, Nieves. That was powerful.
Thank you.
So at the end, we'll have the opportunity to raise any comments or questions. Next up, we have Kathy Rojas. She is a Queens native, Queens-based organizer, and a daughter of two working-class Colombian immigrant parents. After her assistance in delegation with the Alliance for Global Justice to Colombia in 2016, she has been organizing a U.S. movement in solidarity with Colombian leftists with People's Congress of Resistance. She's currently building a campaign against a new Amazon headquarters in Long Island City.
Peace, everybody. Let me take this. Okay. First of all, I would like to say I'm very honored to be on this panel. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak. Is the slide? There we go. Okay, cool. And the other thing that I wanted to say is a lot of the things that Nieves mentioned is a lot of things that people in Colombia are going through right now. Women in Colombia are going through right now, and there's been a very right-wing political change that has happened it's been going on in Colombia, so we'll get into that. But before I really start, it's really important to talk about the history a little bit of Colombia, so I'll try to give a really quick overview. If I talk fast, I'm sorry. Just slow me down if I'm talking too fast for you to translate or anything. But yeah, it's just a quick history. So the history of Colombia has been the history of land conflict, of a conflict that started because of the violent tactics the oligarchy has used to attempt to take away land from campesinos. Therefore, the history of land conflict in Colombia is similar to the history of the world. It is the history of class struggle. It begins with the arrival of Spanish colonizers in Colombia in 1498. The United States and its imperialist forces have had its hands in Colombia for decades. Colombia is one of the only, I'm very proud of this. Colombia is one of the only 5 countries in the world that has all the thermic climates, right? So we have all the thermic weathers, and we also have a Pacific coast and an Atlantic coast, which means that we can actually grow anything. Anything that you want to grow can be grown in Colombia. So while that is wonderful and that could bring so many benefits to people, due to the fact that we lived in a capitalist country that's like, you know, reaping the effects of U.S. imperialism, what happens is that we become targets of U.S. imperialism. So because we can become very profitable. So I'd like to start, if you go back a few slides, with December 6th, 1928. Back more. There we go. So December 6th, 1928 is one of the worst cases of U.S. imperialist terror in Colombia. At this time, campesinos had been working for U.S.-owned United Fruit Company, and while they were working for the U.S.-owned United Fruit Company, they began to fight for their rights. They wanted to get paid. At the time, they were not getting paid. What they were getting is like coupons for food, and they had like these kind of like really bad housing that they were like lived in, that all the workers lived in, and so they started to organize. The workers organized themselves in unions and gave a list of demands. The company decided not to negotiate. So this is the U.S.-owned company decided not to negotiate and had military troops intervene, right? So the and this still happens today. The U.S. company uses Colombian military for its benefit. And Carlos Cortés Vargas, who was the military general in Santa Marta, ordered for all banana workers who were on strike and who were protesting to be killed. Roughly 3,000 campesinos were massacred on that day. And it was such a brutal massacre that they began to use the carts for which they used to transport bananas to dispose of the Colombian bodies of the workers that they had assassinated, because they preferred to kill 3,000 people as opposed to as opposed to raising their wages or to giving them human working conditions. But that's capitalism. And so then you could press next. So then after that, William Yarborough, in 1962, he runs William Yarborough is a CIA agent from the United States. and he runs an official, he travels to Colombia to run an official like investigation, because at this time is right after the Cuban Revolution. We see the rise of the Cold War in Latin America, where they are trying to say, we want to destroy all workers powered movements, all communist movements, any threat of communism we want to destroy in Colombia. So he goes and he begins to say, so he says, that the U.S. should support, should perform counter-agent and counter-propaganda functions as necessary to execute paramilitary sabotage and or terrorist activities against unknown communist proponents. It should be backed by the United States. So whether or not people were identifying as communists or not, if they were fighting for their human rights, they were targets. And this is where we begin to see the U.S. funding paramilitary operations in Colombia. And one thing that I want to point out is that one of the tactics that William Yarborough was very well known for using was sodium pentanol, which is what the La Compañera said right here, which is that injection that is like a truth serum. That they were using on communists when they, or on just organizers that maybe were not communists, when they were organizing in order to protect their working conditions, to fight for their lands, etc. Next slide. So, soon after, well, around this time, the other thing that happened in Colombia around this time is La Violencia, which happened from 1948 to 1958. So, sorry, I had to get up. So this guy right here, his name is Gaitán, who was one of the more well-known socialist leaders of Colombia. He actually was running for presidency. And remember when I told you all about the banana workers? He was a lawyer. So when the banana workers were massacred, Gaitán actually represented them and brought so much attention onto that issue. When he was running for office, he was killed. He was killed while he was running for presidential office, which after that war is what supposedly created La Violencia, which was what is coined as a fight between liberals and conservatives, which is what I was brought up to believe. But what I have learned when I went to Colombia and spoke to activists is that it wasn't really a fight for liberals and conservatives. At the time, in 1949, there was a World Bank mission headed by Lachlan Curry, a Canadian-born economist, and he created a plan for the World Bank to industrialize Colombia. So there was 2 points in this plan: to create low-wage workers in industrialized areas, and in order to do this, they needed to move all of the campesinos from their land so that they could free up the land that would be taken by latifundistas, which are large land owners, in order to grow raw materials that would be used in large factories. So the plan, this war, was really a war to displace Colombians from their land. And this was led by the World Bank in Colombia in order for them to take those resources, and when they took those resources, they would then use those people that were landless as low-wage workers. Okay, so I'm gonna get to the resistance in a little bit. It's not all bad. All right, so we could go on to the next slide. So was there a slide in between? Okay, we could leave that there. All right. So in 1963, there was a massacre in Marquetilia. In 1963, the U.S. at the time takes out a report saying that there's 4 different republics in Colombia: Marquetilia, Rio Chiquito, Patria, and Guayabara. These republics were supposedly considered independent republics that were like communes created independently by communists that were not considered part of Colombia. They said that this was a threat to national security, and in Marquetalia, where there was 48 people living there, they sent 16,000 troops into Marquetalia to kill the 48 people living there in this autonomous community because it posed a threat supposedly to national security. This is 1963, and at this time they were using, in this place they use in Marquetelia, they use chemical weapons like napalm, anthrax, and what is known in Colombia as nigua negra, which is a chemical that seeps into like people's feet, the campesinos' feet, and they showed us pictures. I couldn't find them to put them in the presentation, but it seeped into the campesinos' feet, and it was like a bacteria that started to destroy their body, leaving many of them without limbs or losing body parts. Out of what happened in Marquetelia, and this constant attack on Colombian people and Colombian land, rose the FARC-EP in 1964. So I'm just going to read. The FARC-EP es la respuesta a la agresión del gobierno a los derechos de los campesinos y campesinas de Marquetalia, Río Chiquito, Pato y Guayabero. So FARC-EP is the response to the aggression of the government and to the rights and for the rights of farmers. How do we say campesinos? Peasants. The peasantry and the peasantry of Marquetilia, Rio Chiquito, Pato, and Guayabero. So they begin to take up arms, not because they want to take up arms because of this glorified like political thing. They begin to take up arms because that's their only means of defense. And there's a, Fanon, I forgot Fanon, the book on revolution. But what was, he has a book that it says okay, there's a book on revolution by Fanon. He write whatever. He has 3. I'm not sure which one it is. I forgot. But one of them, he says like, that through the revolution, women find liberation, right? And that by being part of the revolution, by getting out of the home and then playing a revolutionary role, that women then become organizers and start fighting for their rights. So we could go on to the next slide. So I just want to show a video here because a large part of what the FARC did was also, while it first started with 2 women only, by the end, like after 53 years, almost half of the FARC is women. And women themselves were taking up arms in defense of their community. So if we could just play this video really quickly, it's only a few minutes. Well, I'll keep talking while he yeah, okay. But it wasn't so one of the ways that women were engaged in the revolution was through guerrilla warfare, defending their communities. But they were also starting their own organizations, like La Unión de Ciudadanas de Colombia, started in 1954. La Unión de Mujeres Demócratas started in 1959, and you got it? Oh, there we go. All right, we got the movie. Hold on, the video. You gotta put the volume. Look at the volume thingy, right there. The sound on the YouTube. You got it. All right.
están peleando una lucha de clases, pero en segundo lugar también peleando en contra de un sistema patriarcal que siempre ha oprimido a la mujer.
A mí me torturaron. Por eso el delito de ser comunista, por eso el delito de defender los intereses de una clase explotada y excluida. Poder aportar y darle a conocer al pueblo y a la gente cuáles son nuestras propuestas para la verdadera paz y justicia. Hay que valorar los aportes que hicieron, sus propuestas para la inclusión de género en los acuerdos.
Hoy estamos buscando la paz y creemos fundamentalmente en ella y estamos enseñando absolutamente todo.
Que haya paz definitivamente.
All right. So, that shows you a little bit on their lifestyle and how they became organizers through the struggle. When I went there and we stayed in like the FARC zones or whatever, a lot of the women spoke about how when they went there, they actually didn't read and write. They were illiterate, and they learned how to do that. How through the FARC, they learned how to create videos. They would write articles. They have a website called La Mujer Fariana, where they write different blog posts and different articles. Everybody should check it out. But so basically that war continued in Colombia from it was a civil war from 1964 to December 2016. Colombia's armed conflict claims over 220,000 lives. 92,000 people have disappeared, and 7.7 million people have been forcefully displaced. Colombia has the largest population of internally displaced people in the world. Well, yeah, I think it just went over, like last year it went over Syria, but it's always like Syria and Colombia going, Throughout this war, at any point, 70 to 85% of violence has been committed by paramilitary death squads and/or Colombian armed forces that are trained by the School of the Americas in Georgia of the United States. In the United States has always also given, I believe it's 12 million. I have the statistic is coming, but I believe it's $12 million dollars in aid to Colombia and in military aid, and it's one of the highest recipients in military aid. What happened with the United Fruit Company is not something of the past. If we look at the practices of Coca-Cola in Colombia right now, it's something that continues to happen. Colombian workers, when they work for U.S. companies like Coca-Cola and they begin to unionize, they many times get disappeared. So if you look up like killercoke.org, that's where they have like all of the faces of the union workers in Colombia that have been disappeared. And, they don't report on it. They're disappeared. The Colombian government doesn't want to know about it. Nobody wants to report on it. So that's something. So one thing that women were actually very, very much involved in the peace process that was signed in 2016. The peace process is supposed to, because it's still alive, is supposed to kind of give a platform for new political participation. It also has land reform and reorganization of land. It speaks about free political participation, talking about how to crop substitution and things of that sort. So, this happened in December 2016. Since then, You could go on to the next slide. Next one. So, since the peace process, the FARC has completed 100% of its obligations based on the peace agreement. Based on what was accorded to them, they've done everything that they needed to do. The Colombian government has only done 20% of what it was supposed to do. What it has done is the FARC has given in their weapons, and what has happened now is that the places that were FARC territories are now becoming paramilitary territories, where these right-wing death squads are moving into the territories that the FARC used to defend. What is happening is that everybody that was involved in the peace process is now being attacked and is now facing criminal charges because they want to make it so everybody that is part of the peace process for them to stop doing their work. You could go to the next slide. I'm gonna speed it up because I'm a little bit out of time. But there's a new president, Duque, who's even more right-wing than the last one, that has only made it worse since he's been in power. We've seen an average of sometimes it's more. Sometimes I get texts on WhatsApp that 7 activists got killed in one day, but an average of 1 per day, 30 per month, social activists that are being killed. It is what is happening in Colombia is what is called a political genocide. Do we have another slide? And then, Jesus Santrich, who was one of the main negotiators of the peace agreement, has been incarcerated by New York State, actually, saying that he did some type of deal on cocaine, and some type of cocaine transaction. And I met him when I was in Colombia last August, and he is not in the physical condition to be doing anything, but the outside of his house is like teteado with like mad police. So nobody, there's like no way that he could have done any of these things. And then Julie Hernandez, who is actually is now facing charges. She was working for HIP to free the political prisoners that are being tortured. The same tactics that Nieves spoke about is happening to the political prisoners in U.S.-run prisons in Colombia. In Tramacua is one of them. But U.S.-run prisons in Colombia is housing political prisoners. There's still more than 600 there. She was in charge of representing 160 of them, freeing them, and now she's facing criminal charges for quote-unquote falsifying documentation. So right now, everybody in Colombia is under attack. We know that the root of the conflict in Colombia is the greed of global capitalism for the lands and the resources because they are abundant in our territories. As internationalists, we know that what is happening in Colombia right now is happening throughout the world. In particular, we are currently witnessing the effects of U.S. imperialism has had on Honduras, right? Imperialists had a coup in 2009 of a democratically elected president, fucked up their whole shit. Sorry. I'm speeding up, so then I'm getting off my thing, and then I start cursing. So then they messed up their whole country, and then now they're now when people seek asylum, then it's a problem. When at the end of the day, we created the reasons why they needed asylum. Until we end global capitalism, we will not see the end of attacks on women's lives, war, femicide, poverty, patriarchy, etc. As Asada Shakur said, where there is oppression, there will be resistance. And yes, U.S. imperialism has led to the displacement of abuse of many women and families, and it has also created fearless, unstoppable women who fight for a society organized to meet the needs of society that prioritizes the needs of the most, a socialist society. Venceremos.
Thank you, Kathy. So actually, I learned that we have a little bit more time because we started a little bit later. So sorry for rushing you.
No.
Okay, up next. It made it more interesting. Okay, Ariel Gold is the National Co-Director of Code Pink Women for Peace It's a women-led grassroots organization working to end U.S. wars and militarism, support peace and human rights initiatives, and redirect our tax dollars into healthcare, education, green jobs, and other life-affirming programs. Welcome, Ariel.
Hi, so for anybody who's not familiar with Code Pink, we started in 2003 in opposition to the Iraq War. And we still have U.S. wars in the Middle East going on today. The war in Afghanistan now stretching into 17 years. What these wars have done is completely destabilized the Middle East and given rise to extremist organizations like ISIS. I'm going to talk about the effect of imperialism and militarism on women in the Middle East, mostly on the effect of imperialism on women in Palestine, but also in Saudi Arabia and Yemen. And I'm speaking as a solidarity activist, as somebody that works here in the U.S. to day and night to change U.S. policy and change the U.S. alliances and support that enable these repressions to go on and to increase by the day. So Israel is one of the world's greatest modern settler colonial projects. Incredibly successful in that endeavor. And that it started in its initiation, which was in the late 1800s, as a settler colonial project to displace an indigenous population from their land, and on this idea that this indigenous population was inferior, that was built into the project from its very start. The goal always being to displace people from their land and to take the land and the resources as their own. The way to do this was with an obsession on demographics, an obsession that Israel still has today in counting the number of Jews versus the number of Palestinians and constantly weighing that number so that they know the voting demographics in Jerusalem and who's going to control the city of Jerusalem throughout the legal boundaries of Israel as well as the occupied territories. And it began with this goal of knowing how many people had to be ethnically cleansed from the land to create the state. And that was done by displacing over 800,000 Palestinians from their lands in raids, in massacres, in fear tactics, and driving them into where they still are, many of them in refugee camps in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in the West Bank, and in diaspora around the world. So from the start of this goal to displace Palestinians from the land so that Israel could always ensure a demographic majority, the most effective way to do this is through destroying the very fabric of society, destroying the Palestinian society, both through destroying children and through destroying the destruction of women's lives. And we see this sometimes in actual orders from the Israeli military, such as orders, and this was during the Intifada, one of the orders to break the bones of the Palestinian children. And the goal of this in that case is to leave a memory and to scare the other children. And we see this right now with the Israeli military as well, both in the snipers that are shooting protesters in Gaza, as well as snipers in the West Bank, and they shoot in the lower limbs, in the leg. And the aim of this, and they document it sometimes, this is the breaking the bones policy, is in this case they're actually aiming for a nerve so that they cause a lifelong disability. And this is sometimes and many times preferable to killing the child because it's that memory, and you have a population who's then disabled, who's then traumatized in order to control the rest of the population. And so that's also done in the way that women are oppressed. And women, Palestinian women, face oppression both by the Israeli military and by the Palestinian Authority, which acts as an arm of the Israeli military, as well as through traditional attitudes towards women. And so one of the ways and times that we see this continuous breaking the fabric of Palestinian society is the constant demolition of Palestinian homes. And this is something that goes on daily. I think yesterday they were demolishing some homes in East Jerusalem. When a Palestinian home is demolished, it's the women who bear a disproportionate burden, because the women are in charge of the family life, the food, the domestic life, and so they still have to figure out and go on coping with that, as well as often then having to enter the workforce as well, because the family is in such shattered state. They also at this time experience an astronomical rise in domestic violence when a home has been demolished. We see this attack on women and the fabric of Palestinian life at the checkpoints and in access to health care. So Palestinian women have 4 times the mortality rate of Israeli women, and Palestinian infant mortality upon birth is almost 3 times that of Israelis. In recent times, in the past couple years, we have seen the drop in permits given for women in Gaza to be able to travel outside of Gaza to receive medical care, usually in the West Bank, drop from around 92% to in the 50s, in the percentage in the 50s. And we know, of course, how necessary it is to have access to health care when you're pregnant and so on. This is also living within an enclave, a besieged enclave that women in Gaza live under, where 97% of the water is not fit for consumption, where medical supplies can't get in, and where food coming in and out is also completely controlled. So then access to be able to travel outside for health care rises in importance to that, and we see that. We know of women who have given birth and who've miscarried at checkpoints as they try to travel. We see regularly when ambulances cannot pass through checkpoints, when they're attacked by settlers and soldiers stand by and watch. And we know again how this disproportionately affects women. One of the things that we're seeing recently is an alliance between the government of Israel and the government of Saudi Arabia. We're seeing an alliance between the U.S., Saudi Arabia. Of course, we have an alliance between Israel and the U.S., and recently this growing alliance between Israel and Saudi Arabia, including that Saudi Arabia is touted by President Trump and by the State of Israel as being the key to this coming peace plan. Basically, their role is to force Palestinians to accept a lower standard of human rights, to accept fewer human rights. So I want to take a moment to look at Saudi Arabia as we're looking at this issue, and when we look at U.S. alliances in the Middle East, these would be 2 of the largest alliances that we see. And for anybody that hasn't followed the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post journalist who was dismembered in the Turkish embassy, Trump said the other day, as the CIA reported, that of course Jamal Khashoggi had been murdered at the request of the Saudi Crown Prince, which we all knew already. President Trump said, it doesn't matter. We still, no matter what, whether he was or wasn't murdered by the request of Mohammed bin Salman, we will not put any sanctions or damage our relationship with Saudi Arabia, both for the sake of our own interests and for the sake of Israel. And Trump cited specifically, this is a U.S. economic interest. These are American jobs and American investment. And when he speaks of American jobs, what he is talking about is U.S. weapons deals with Saudi Arabia. And so U.S. weapons deals with Saudi Arabia are enabling the worst humanitarian catastrophe in modern times in Yemen. And we know, whether it's in Palestine, whether it's in Afghanistan, whether it's in Yemen, that women bear the brunt from war conflicts. And we see this as Amnesty International has just come out with a report saying that since 2015, 85,000 children between up to the age of 5, from 0 to 5, have died in Yemen from acute malnutrition, which means that women do not have the nutrition to be able to breastfeed and do not have the resources to feed their children. And so we see U.S. imperialism, U.S. weapons sales to Saudi Arabia directly allowing this to take place. In the meantime, we watch Saudi Arabia tout themselves as a reformist government. So last spring, Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, traveled throughout the United States on a publicity tour. He met with Oprah, he met with the heads of Disney and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and many, many politicians. There's a contract between Saudi Arabia with Vice Media currently to do promotional videos on how amazing this reformist government of Saudi Arabia is. In the meantime, we have the most repressive situation for women inside Saudi Arabia. So the very women who campaigned and risked their lives and their freedom day and night for the right to drive, which was an incredible campaign in Saudi society for this basic right to be able to drive. Shortly before the Crown Prince touted his amazing reformist nature at granting women the right to drive, arrested the leaders of these women leaders who were campaigning for the right to drive. And recently we've seen a report that these women and other detainees are being tortured in the Saudi prisons with electroshock treatment, flogging, sexual harassment, and much more. We're looking at a country, but what the Crown Prince gained by granting this right to drive was an incredible public image that is used to cover up one of the most repressive societies on earth, a society where women still need a male guardian's permission, their husband, their father, their brother, their uncle, in order to get a passport, in order to travel, for medical treatment. And so we look at this country and we see the U.S. continuing to support this repressive regime that represses both its own people as well as devastating an entire country. And we look at the same government that is giving diplomatic and economic cover and enabling Israel to carry out this brutal occupation. And we know in all of these places that it's U.S. interests that are continuing this, and that it's pulling the U.S. out that we need to see happen in order to get change. So this brings it back here to our responsibility within our government here, that if we want to see these policies across the world, in the Middle East change, that we have to deal with our government here. We have to deal with ending U.S. weapons sales to Saudi Arabia, and we know President Trump isn't going to grant that to us, that's something we're going to have to make happen within Congress and from a grassroots level. We're going to have to shift U.S. policy towards Israel on a daily basis, again, through our Congress and through our grassroots work, through our solidarity work, and change U.S. foreign policy so that it is not prioritizing the interests of these weapons companies who are the real profiters. That's who benefits in all of these places. It's Lockheed Martin, it's Boeing, it's Raytheon. That's who's reaping the benefits from the death and destruction and oppression that we see overseas.
Thank you, Ariel. So last but not least, we have Mandy Carter. She is a Southern Black lesbian activist with a 51-year movement history of social, racial, and LGBTQ justice organizing since 1967. Yes. Carter worked with the War Resisters League and participated in the 1968 Poor People's Campaign, got arrested, and lived in Resurrection City, the mall in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to you. Here's why. Demographics, demographics, demographics. I'll frame this and I'll get into a little bit more conversation. Right now, by 2050, if not sooner, this country will be majority people of color. By 2050, if not sooner. Right now, all of us post-World War II baby boomers, if you don't mind raising your hand, born between the years of 1946 and 64, raise your hand. 72 million. People between the ages of 18 and 24 will be 73 not soon from now. I can count. And I only say that because that demographic, when I think about those of us who are part of whatever we call, you know, civil rights movement, 50th anniversary, we're getting ready to go into the 50th anniversary of that thing called Vietnam. The reason why I appreciate what you shared, you have a whole generation who have no idea what happened. And if we do not capture these stories now from the people who have survived and the stories of those who had to do resistance and resilience, my fear is don't know anything about it, not sure what that's about. So capturing your story is critical. Capturing stories of the Japanese internment camps is critical. Capturing the stories of slavery is critical. Capturing the stories of the Trail of Tears is critical. And I just wonder, now with this amazing technology, pictures, we were upstairs doing the, what was that we were doing up there with the, songs, cultural. But I'm also from North Carolina. There's not one war we have not been involved in the past, the present, and the future that does not involve North Carolina, because this is what we had there. There's an organization called War Resisters International, founded in 1921. Here it is. War is a crime against humanity. I therefore am determined not to support any kind of war and to strive for the removal of all causes. That's 1921. In 1923, 3 women, not by coincidence, started the War Resisters League. We're now in our 95th year. What's the commonality of all that? When you think of war as an institution, and you think about what purpose it has in the past, now, and future, the thing that I find so amazing when we talk about what happens to women. Let alone, there was a time, by the way, when women could not vote, could not run for office, could not serve in the military. Why they would, but that's another story. And marriage was anything but equal based on gender. Then you had slavery and all the fight we had to have. And not by coincidence, once we got our citizenship, we were told the exact same thing they said to women. You cannot vote, you cannot run for public office, you cannot serve in the military, and we couldn't even get married. We had to do the African tradition of jumping the broom. You see a pattern here? It's all the same. And then you overlay that with the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, blah, blah, blah. You begin to see it's around race, gender, ability. The fact that we're having this conversation right now could not be more timely. There's a reason why those of us who are baby boomers and why we continue to be here in this movement to this day. It wasn't like we took care of that and I'm done and I can go home. Militarism is such a deep-rooted thing, and the way women have been treated. When women did join the military, let's talk about the sexual assault, all the crap that happens with women there. But also, in North Carolina, You have Fayetteville, North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, Fort Bragg, Cherry Point. Go down those streets and all you see is these sex shops that are going up and down around the area. I'm just trying to make the parallel comparison. But when young men are being talked about coming into the military, they're so desensitized about how they treat women, it's not unusual that they would have this attitude about it. But what you're not hearing about is when women, whether they're in the military or not, when their partners who are serving come back, and a lot of murders are happening, a lot of domestic violence is happening in those areas as well. But also, when you look at the military bases in other countries, you see all the sex stuff that happens around there. Why does that happen? Who's supporting that? And who keeps that going on as well? So I would just kind of a couple of more points about how I'm feeling about this, what you call was the violence women experience through tactics of war. Here, internationally, but also, why do we have what's going on in Chile? Why are people leaving those countries and coming up to here? Why are they leaving? Because of our policies. Profit might be a reason. But if the military, and you had mentioned it earlier, is thinking about the conventional ways you normally would win a war. Remember the draft? There was a time there was a draft, right? And the Orange Man never went. He had whatever his problem was. But what you have now is you have economic conscription going on. Why are people joining the military? A lot of them are coming from, and can I put the issue of class on the table here as well? Class, not just besides race. They're coming from low-income families who are barely making it, and this is their way out to say this might be the possibility of how change might be able to happen. And once they're in there, I know a sister who went 3, 4, 5 times in Afghanistan, but that was the only way she would be able to actually keep a job, promise of college, and figuring out how that really was not going to work for them. So I would just like to maybe, before we open it up, make a couple of interesting points. Does anyone remember the North American Free Trade Association, NAFTA? The North American Free Bill Clinton? The South, if anyone knows it, people who've been there, that's a right-to-work state. They could hire you and fire you like that with no reason. But when they were trying to figure out, and most people are working in cotton, linen, whatever that might be, but when those jobs all of a sudden they were making almost barely a living wage, someone came up with the bright idea of NAFTA. They could put those jobs across the border for 50 cents on the dollar. And all those jobs went down south. They went to other countries. You're getting things from Vietnam, Cambodia, where it might be. Profit over people. But you have to protect those interests like we just saw, what you just said. And if that means sending people out, and ironically, as people of color having to fight other people of color, that's what I find so disdainful. Remember when King in 1967 said there's a reason why we should question Vietnam. And I have no disrespect for those who served, don't get me wrong, but you cannot send black men and women thousands of miles away to another country of color to kill or be killed in the name of democracy when you didn't have it here and you didn't have it when you came back. What's wrong with this picture? And I remember Vietnam, a lot of us, I went to jail, and I'm sitting in jail with all these black women, and they said, "Why are you here, Mandy?" "I'm here to resist the war in Vietnam," and that's all I had to say because this is what they said. My father, my brother, my husband, my cousin goes before the judge, and the judge says, "You have 2 choices, NOM or jail. What you going to do?" And that's what it meant for any black folk to be serving in that particular war and or people of color. So I just want to say there's a solidarity, but how do we have that with each other? And it cannot only be in English. And also thinking people who are indigenous to these lands, they're here. It's just circling back around in terms of what we end up deciding to do with it. So I would like to maybe end with a couple of moments of hope. Did anyone just see what happened in 2018 with this election? I'm living in North Carolina. We just broke the Republican majority in both the House and Senate because we had people going out to vote. My generation, younger generation, but here's what's critical about 2020. Any 16-year-old is sitting out here right now, they're going to be of age in 2020. Don't wait. Think about what that could be. Women and the diverse people that could come together and make the change not only in this society, but the implications internationally, what that could be. So I would just end with the two words, you know, if you can say it in Spanish, not resistance and resilience. Resistance and resilience, and how we do that collectively, not alone, but have those conversations now, and don't wait. Now is the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. And thank you to all of the panelists for sharing your insight on this issue. Nieves for sharing your testimony and such powerful details about the torture that you yourself experienced. Kathy for contextualizing what's happening in Colombia with the campesinos and how that's connected to the paramilitary, and relates back to Nieves talking about the School of Americas and how this knowledge is being institutionalized. And then Ariel for also contextualizing reproductive gender-based violence and how that shows up with the issue of Israel and Palestine with housing settlements, lack of access to proper health care, nutrition, and then Mandy for ending with the importance of being able to preserve and to be able to share and also institutionalize whatever historical knowledge and memory that is being cultivated here in this space. And I think with the conversations that we end up having with each other after this panel. So thank you all to the panelists. Next, I wanted to open up the floor to any questions that people might have. We have about 45 minutes. So, okay, I see you first. You can.
Hi, I'm Marina. It's not a question so much as a comment. I really want to reinforce the fact that there is no such thing as American exceptionalism. That every single finger on every single trigger was put there by the U.S., and that every single atrocity that happens across the world has also happened on this continent. So people have been murdered, women have been brutalized, experimented on here. We are not exceptionalists. This happens here, it happens everywhere, and the U.S. is responsible.
Can I add something?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, is this on? Hello?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, just to say that, to speak about that, because one connection that I wanted to make is the drug war, which is how they've, so it was actually $12 billion. I said 12 million, it was 12 billion. They've sent $12 billion in military aid to Colombia, saying that it's for the drug war. But now we see that it's really for paramilitaries that are terrorizing our community, right? So they're displacing Colombians, terrorizing Colombians, running prisons in Colombia on the drug war, and that same drug war is arresting black and brown youth here, black and brown people here, okay? So it's the same system that is both incarcerating and displacing people here as it is displacing people in Latin America, because Colombia is not the only country in Latin America that's suffering through the drug war. So it's really like to put globalization and imperialism into a global perspective, that oppressed people in the United States are literally facing the same type of repression that oppressed people in Latin America are facing, and oppressed people throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't get that.
Question?
So this is in regards to the Israeli-Palestinian occupation. I just wanted to ask you, like, what kind of initiatives are you doing to, you know, I'm guessing boycotting, obviously, the weapons companies. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Sure. So we have some exciting things happening in U.S. Congress. We see now with this new House of Representatives, we have for the very first time a representative who supports the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which sounds small, but that is monumental to get that. We have 3 new representatives that are supporting Palestinian rights. We have, for the very first time, it was introduced last year and will be reintroduced this coming congressional session, the very first bill for Palestinian rights. It's to end U.S. support for Israeli military detention of Palestinian children. And we also have an enormous number of grassroots initiatives taking place on the ground. So we at Code Pink, we are working on a boycott and divestment campaign that targets a company called Elbit Systems, and it's Israel's largest weapons company. They are the largest exporter of drones in the world. One of the things that we know about Israel is that this is an economy that is based on militarism, on security, and on surveillance. So Elbit Systems has been involved in every major assault on Gaza. They provide the majority of the surveillance for Israel's apartheid wall, and they also contract with the U.S. Department of Homeland and Security to provide surveillance at the U.S.-Mexico border. So our campaign focuses on getting members of Congress to stop taking campaign contributions from Elbit, of which there are a number of congressional members that take them. And it also focuses on, we're going to be targeting an investment institution that's one of the major holders of stocks in Elbit. And you can go to codepink.org/stop Elbit to learn more, or you can speak with me. And there are many other initiatives other than that. Jewish Voice for Peace is running campaigns, U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. So luckily, this is an issue that there's a lot going on and a lot of ways to get involved.
I have a question. In North Carolina, we have a lot of public schools, and I thank you for public schools, but we now have a lot of charter schools. And something I've noticed that we tend to be very U.S.-centric, so I'll ask each of you. How would you tell someone who's like maybe going into freshman in high school, why should they care about what's happening in Palestine? Why should they care what's happening in Chile? Why should they care? Not only about the why, but more importantly, in what you're going to do about it in a tangible way they can hear it, thinking of the youth. So I'm just curious, because most times you think international, what? Nothing. So if you can just say a little bit about the why, it's important, and how could you get to someone who's a 15-year-old to hear what you're saying?
Well, I'm actually a high school teacher. I teach global history. I would like to think all my kids are super engaged in my class, but you know, that's just not the case. No, I'm joking. No, but you know, so shout out to Esperanza Martel, who does this this very amazing workshop called Education for Liberation. And in part of that workshop, she does a game called 10 Chairs of Capitalism. And she trained me in like facilitating that. And then in the 10 Chairs of Capitalism, I can't tell you all the game completely, but basically you play into being kind of like a displaced person at that moment. It's like a, what do you call that? A role play. It has a name. And at the end, you discuss, like, most of the kids end up giving up their chair and giving up their things, and they give it to this one chosen one that is, like, you know, supposed to represent the elite or whatever. And at the end, we break it down into, like, why did you do that? Why did you give up your chair or whatever? And then they're like, well, because you told me to. And then I'm like, so who do I represent? And then who do I represent in society? And how do those feelings come up for you in society so that you continue to make this oppressive system work? And what could you do differently? And if you united and if you cared, right? If you cared about the person sitting next to you, if you cared about the struggles that everyone in this room was going through, if you cared about, I also teach in a 100% immigrant school. So it's all of my students are immigrants. So so a lot of times what I see is that they care more about what's happening in their home countries than they care about what's happening here because they don't plan to stay here their whole life. So it's a little bit easier for me in that way. But you know, for those of you that do want to know more about that workshop, I think that it's called a simulation. That simulation definitely helps them begin to understand how isolating themselves and isolating their issues only helps the wheel of capitalism work, and it works against them personally if they isolate themselves, and that's why they have to work with one another. So, you know, afterwards, if you know, I'll be glad to give you like her Facebook page where she puts up the workshop and stuff.
Bueno, yo soy de otra generación del siglo pasado, y ¿qué le recomiendo a los jóvenes? Somos totalmente diferentes. Estoy en desacuerdo cuando la gente, muchos plantean que la generación nuestra fue mejor. Yo creo que no, porque son tiempos diferentes, el lenguaje es diferente, las técnicas diferentes. En los años 60 peleamos con un fusil, ahora se pelea con un dron. Y yo no tengo idea de manejar un dron. Entonces, el lenguaje, la historia son totalmente diferentes. Hay que apoyarlos en sus luchas reivindicativas, hay que apoyarlos cuando salen a protestar. Por ejemplo, en Chile, la dictadura privatizó toda la educación. Entonces, en Chile ahora se está peleando, después de tantos años que la educación era gratis, de 50 años, en que sea la educación gratis. Y ahí es donde se produce la revolución pingüina, cuando 1 millón de jóvenes salen a la calle, que eso no había ocurrido nunca ni en Latinoamérica, ¿ya? Entonces, a esos jóvenes hay que apoyarlos, en el caso de Latinoamérica, de mi país, y a los que están aquí, o sea, el lenguaje es diferente. Por ejemplo, la otra vez, mi nieta tiene 7 años, bueno, yo ya maneja la computadora y todo, y apretan la tecla y qué sé yo, y todavía no, yo no sé, yo hace un año aprendí, después de tanto, aprendí que existía el Google. Yo no tenía idea que existía eso. Y para mí fue cuando lo apreté y empecé a hacer como que era otro mundo. Y tantos años que yo me perdí de no saber apretar la tecla para el Google. Entonces, hacen unas clases en la escuela para los niños para enseñarles matemáticas. Mi hija, y para mí eso es una tortura. Para sumar 5 más 4, hacen toda una explicación de que por qué el 5, de por qué el 4, de por qué tienen que hacer una suma diferente, que yo por 10 veces que me enseñó la maestra no lo pude aplicar. Y resulta que después llegan los niños y apretan una tecla y sale cuánto es 4 más 5. Entonces, todo eso yo sé que también que es para estimular el cerebro de los niños y varias cosas más, pero lo que hay que hacer es solamente apoyar y algunas ideas que ellos te pregunten, porque también nosotros somos otra generación y nos ven como los viejos que nos servimos. Eso es verdad. Así que no vengan a decir que no. Para algunas cosas servimos, para otras no. Para la mayoría no servimos. Pero la experiencia mía ha sido, especialmente aquí con los jóvenes de acá, de este foro, nos han preguntado cosas que ellos no quieren volver a repetir aquí, no quieren que pase lo que pasamos en nuestros países, los errores que se cometieron en los movimientos revolucionarios, partidos de izquierda, partidos tradicionales, ¿ya? Esa experiencia que no se vuelva a repetir. Y ellos nos preguntan o los aconsejamos. Pero también es difícil porque es otra generación, son otras, los lenguajes son diferentes, el vestir es diferente, todo, el pensamiento, la comida, todo es diferente. Entonces también nosotros tenemos que adaptarnos a los tiempos, ¿ya? Y también nosotros ya, por la experiencia mía, ya uno está más viejo, se te olvidan las cosas, la salud física es menor, pero ahí, por ejemplo, los viejos y las viejas vamos a las marchas a apoyar a todos los jóvenes y ahí estamos, ¿ya? Y aquí estamos apoyando a este foro del pueblo, que es una gran iniciativa y que hay que seguirla apoyando porque son jóvenes que hacer este trabajo aquí en las entrañas del monstruo, donde tenéis la CIA, el FBI, el servicio secreto y todas las cosas, es difícil, po. No sé cuántos infiltrados habrá aquí ahora que nos están escuchando, están anotando para llevar el informe. Entonces tenemos que estar atentos a todas esas cosas, ¿ya? Así que lo único mensaje es que hay que apoyar a la nueva generación en las reivindicaciones que ellos piden y bueno, si nos piden consejos, dárselos.
I think this is a really exciting time to watch youth take leadership. I think we see that in the movement to end gun violence here in the U.S. We watched youth, high school youth, who we often think of as so numb to all of this and so disengaged. We watched them take action and march in the streets and change political leadership. And when youth are able to do that, then they see as well how the system works. And so I think that a lot of our young people saw in that moment how campaign contributions and buying off government leaders takes action. They saw that within the system of the NRA, but it's throughout so many other systems as well. It's through the pharmaceutical industry, it's through the weapons industry, it's through the revolving door of the military-industrial complex. And I agree, when our youth get engaged, we have to join them in the streets and support their efforts and give them space to learn and grow and to lead. And from a personal perspective, I believe that young parents have a responsibility too to engage your children in the political process. I know when my children were just entering their early teenage lives, I took them each, we're a Jewish family, I took them to the West Bank to spend weeks living with Palestinian families and see what was happening with their own eyes. And so whatever that's like, whether it's taking our young children to protests, and I know I grew up at protests and brought my children there in strollers, but it's about engaging in that and bringing our families into civic engagement, because this is their future that they have to build for themselves, and we need to support that.
So a question that I wanted to ask is kind of like a follow-up to that, the question that Mandy just asked. So every year we do a summer school of women's activism with Affirm. And yeah, I see some of our former participants, so shout out. I see you. Yeah, so we do that every year. And this past summer, one of the conversations that we had was specifically about how are you going to prepare yourself for the heightened political repression that we're going to experience here in the United States, whether or not it's here or whether or not it's going to come like in the next year. How do you prepare yourselves, and what would you say to someone that might be sitting in the audience that might be too scared to speak up due to their job? Maybe they're working in government, or they just want to maintain like this, neutrality that they think is important for their own professional livelihoods and careers.
That's the question?
Yeah.
We'll go down the line. Well, thanks for asking that question. Ironically, the reason why I'm sitting here, because I was in high school, I'm class of 1966, Schenectady, New York. My social studies teacher brought in someone from the Quakers. 3 things were said that day that impacted my life, and some of you might be able to relate. The first is just the history of the Quakers, full equality and justice for all, years and years and years. The second thing the person said, this was a young white staffer, and they were talking about how, in the height of the civil rights movement, how do we as allies be down south? But he talked about the power of one. I didn't quite get it at the moment, but the power of one. That one person can make a difference. We all have a moral compass, no matter where we live, which language we speak. But it was the third thing. We have a high school work camp in the Pocono Mountains. That's why I'm here. So do you do a similar thing with this camp thing that you're talking about, the school? Kinda? Yeah, you do. I would just suggest maybe, as we go gaily forward, if you think about how else you might be able to engage, whether it's the internet or whatever, something about a small group of people being in a similar space and having conversations. So I would say that. But here's something I like to share that I think really made my mind turn around what looks like the opposition that seems to be in control. Just a thought. I live in North Carolina, and I have to just say, in my lifetime, when women couldn't vote, black folk couldn't vote, but in our lifetime, and those who made it possible. The first African American man, son of an interracial marriage, got to be president, which may or may not be a good thing, but in our lifetime. I'm not sure that anyone, I certainly cannot almost comprehend that reality. And I don't think it's a question of if, but when, if there's going to be a woman, or maybe we get rid of the two-party system anyway, whatever it might be. Y'all for that, right? No reason why not. There has to be other ways. But in 2012, this is what happened in North Carolina, to give you an idea of what the perception was versus the reality. If you remember that guy named, who just got to be Senator of Utah, what's the guy's name? Mitt Romney. He went like this: well, we ain't just going to put up with women. Well, there's half the population. We don't like people of color. Well, there goes another part of the population. We don't like unions. We don't like environmentalists. We don't like teachers. And I thought, wait a minute, that's the folk I want to be hanging out with, and that's why he got 4 more years, in my opinion, in terms of what you do with that vote. So maybe the perception, and I'm not saying there's not a lot of repression and there's not something that can go wrong, but if you re-look at it in terms of the shifting, and it's not a mistake, North Carolina is 51% women in the state of North Carolina now. That's huge. And that's down south. So I'm just wondering, when we start getting into either compartmentalizing, or this is my issue, but if you look at whatever the common thread might be, all of a sudden you're looking at more of a unity kind of thing that might happen versus trying to pick us off one by one by one. That's what's giving me hope in terms of what the potential could be. And we just saw it in terms of the United States Senate, but I can tell you, and Congress, but I can tell you in North Carolina, local has made a profound impact. But that comes from the collectivizing of the vote and or grassroots. So I feel much more optimistic. I'm a 10, count me as a 10 of 10, but it doesn't come without challenges. But I just wonder if we look at it that way, more of what we have the potential to change in unity, in collaboration, in coalition, than all of us doing one thing. So that's what I would say in terms of how I'm looking at my future, my work. And not just only in English too. So how would you mention that?
Yo quiero contar la experiencia en el sur del Bronx para enfrentar lo que tú dices. Lo primero que hay que hacer es trabajo de base, de persona a persona. Vivir en la comunidad, porque si yo vengo de afuera, yo no sé qué es lo que come, cómo viste, qué es lo que le pasa, cómo piensa. Lo otro, hacer educación política, que eso es re difícil. Ya nunca el grueso de los partidos, organizaciones, como se llamen, no ponen el fuerte en la educación política, ¿ya? Porque aquí hay mucha falta de conocimiento de nuestra historia, de la de aquí mismo de los Estados Unidos, y eso a nosotros nos ha dado resultados. Pero es un trabajo que es difícil, que nadie lo quiere hacer, porque tú tienes que hablar con la persona, de persona a persona. Mucha de nuestra gente no sabe leer. Entonces no sacan nada con pasarle un panfleto, mira, anda a la reunión, porque no van, porque no saben leer, ¿ya? Muchos no hablan español ni inglés, hablan el dialecto, ¿ya? Ahí en el sur del Bronx vemos eso. Entonces, formar pequeños grupos de 5, de 10 a nivel de la casa, de la cuadra, del territorio. Nosotros lo llamamos zonas territoriales. Pero hay que tener dedicación, pues. Y entonces la revolución es de lunes a lunes y todo el día. Hay mucho activismo, hay muchos grupos solidarios y movimientos en lo cual la revolución es de 9 a 5 y de lunes a viernes. ¿Sí o no? Ya. Y grupos solidarios, grupos comunitarios a los cuales al que está dirigiendo le pagan un sueldo, al de segundo, al que sigue. Entonces, así es difícil, ¿ya? Y tiene que ser así desde abajo. A veces, fíjate que nosotros, por ejemplo, hacer trabajo con las mujeres, nosotros a veces utilizamos hasta las telenovelas. Tenemos que mamarnos una telenovela para explicarle a través de la telenovela qué es lo que pasa y por qué pasan esas cosas, ya en ese mundo mágico. Tenemos que aprender de fútbol, de arte, diferentes cosas para educar a nuestra gente, porque el grueso de la gente viene de Latinoamérica o de Asia, de otros países, el grueso son campesinos. Entonces, nunca tuvieron posibilidad de nada. Y así nosotros, y ganarse un activista, una persona, si lo pasaste en 10 años ya es un gran éxito. Aquí no es de un día para otro, ¿ya? Y entonces es un trabajo, por ejemplo, nadie quiere trabajar con las pandillas. Somos muy poquitos, así contado con los dedos de la mano, trabajar con las pandillas. Porque tienen un lenguaje diferente, una educación, una cultura diferente. Entonces hay gente que tiene esa capacidad para llegar a las pandillas, ¿ya? Y además, por ejemplo, yo me acuerdo de los Latin Kings, que estaban ahí en el sur del Bronx. A lo único que se le facilitaba el espacio, en ningún lado le prestábamos, era ahí en la Peña del Bronx. Y entonces la misma gente, ellos querían participar en la comunidad, querían integrarse a la comunidad, pero como había ese estigma de que mataban y asesinan, y claro que los hay, pero no eran la mayoría. Entonces nadie le daba espacio y la propia gente de la comunidad no los aceptaba. En la parada, me acuerdo, puertorriqueña, ellos querían ir en un contingente hace años y la misma gente los echó. Por primera vez en el centro nuestro celebraron la fiesta de Reyes, llevaron sus hijos. Ellos nunca habían podido celebrar la fiesta de Reyes y los de las gangas se pusieron los trajes de los reyes y de las reinas, porque nosotros tenemos el concepto de que hay reinas y reyes magos. Entonces repartieron juguetes, hizo la comida. Oye, esa cuestión fue, pero impresionante, ¿ya? Y ahí la policía no se pudo meter, ¿ya? Entonces, si tú vas de a poco, y esto tiene tiempo, o sea, no es así, ay, ya, mañana vamos a hacer la revolución y mañana vamos a salir y vamos a cambiar todo el mundo. No es así. Y es un trabajo difícil, y es un trabajo de día a día, de hora a hora. Y tú tenés que pelear con el marido, con el hijo, con el perro, con el gato, con todo para poder hacer la revolución. Y nosotros tenemos que partir desde nuestra casa haciendo la revolución para poder, o como le quieran llamar, el cambio social, no sé, comunitario, pero tenemos que integrar a toda nuestra gente. Y otras cosas que no se las puedo contar.
So just to reiterate the question, like, how do we prepare for these times, right? For these hard political times. I think the answer is, is organizing, right? Organizing wherever you are, right? The more political power, the more people power that we have in any space, the stronger the people are to take over this system. All right. So, and let me not go too far. So, for example, I teach in a high school right now. Before I taught in a high school, I was a bartender. And when I was a bartender, I was forming a union in the restaurant. Did we win the union? We didn't win the union, but one of the workers is now a member of my organization, and another one of the workers moved on to work in another restaurant where she is building a union. Okay, so there's always wins when you're organizing, and through the process of organizing, they saw that we couldn't win because of the way that the owner attacked us. And through that process, they became politicized, and they began to want to do more. And now I'm a teacher, and in teaching, they tell me, you can't share political events. So I share as many political events as I can until they tell me to stop. You know what I mean? You push and you organize as much as you can wherever you are until you stop. Karina, this is Karina. Say hi, Karina. Karina, right? Can I share about you organizing your mom? The house worker union? The house worker union. Oh, yeah. So Karina, right? Her mom is a house worker, right? How do we call this? Domestic worker. Yes. And her mom, she was having trouble, in the workplace. Her rights were being violated. So then she helps her mom, supports her mom in building a union in her workplace, But it's wherever we are. Right now in Queens, Amazon's coming. So, all right, so let's build a campaign to stop Amazon. People's rights are getting violated. All right, let's have know your rights trainings in barbershops. Teachers, the teacher contract is whack. All right, cool. So let's build with the union and demand a better teacher's contract. So it's wherever we are, we have to be organizing. And through that organizing is where we're going to build a big enough resistance to really have the power to stand up against the system.
Mira, lo otro, en el sur del Bronx, todo lo bueno que hay y para la comunidad ha sido producto de la lucha de la comunidad. Nada ha sido de gratis. Allá los anglosajones no querían ir a hacer clases hace 25 años atrás. Nos tomamos las escuelas. El Ruiz Belvi, que es la única clínica que hay ahí, la tomamos porque la iban a cerrar y no querían que hubiera donde reparten una farmacia. Con un médico solamente, un afroamericano que nos apoyó, nos tomamos la farmacia y hicimos protestas en la calle. Habían puesto el incinerador que quemaba 21 hospitales los desechos, ahí en el sur del Bronx. Estuvimos luchando 6 años, pero ahí movilizamos a los niños, a las escuelas, todo el mundo, y pudimos cerrar el incinerador. Por eso que les digo que las cosas no son así de un día para otro, ya vamos a cerrar esto y qué sé yo, no, pues, o sea, eso costó sangre, sudor y lágrimas. Yo estuve 3 veces presa, mi marido también, 4 veces y el resto de los compañeros. ¿Saben lo que es parar el freeway ahí donde está el Triboro, donde están los 3 boards? Pararse, meterse al medio y parar el tránsito, ¿saben lo que es eso? Por supuesto que quedó la escoba, ¿ya? Entonces, producto de esas luchas, no existe ya más el incinerador. El incinerador contaminaba a todo el Bronx y se produjo el más alto índice de asma de todos los Estados Unidos hasta ahora. Entonces, lo poquito que hay en el sur del Bronx ha sido producto de la lucha de la comunidad. Y así se van ganando las cosas, pues tiene todo su periodo. Además, por ejemplo, los niños tienen una capacidad tan grande que hay que de chiquitito educar a los papás, porque a veces no tratan nada con educar al niño, porque el papá es un cero a la izquierda, porque no ha tenido la oportunidad de ir a estudiar, no ha tenido la oportunidad de saber qué es el mundo. Me acuerdo que nosotros recién llegado a Nueva York, hicimos una huelga de renta, yo y mi marido, y por supuesto pagábamos renta y no había agua caliente, ni había calefacción. Yo estoy hablando hace como 30 años cuando llegamos. Yo y mi marido, nosotros pensando que el resto de la más gente, todos latinos, nos iban a acompañar, nada, sacaron letrero, llegaron los comunistas, llegaron los revolucionarios, en la calle pusieron que nosotros habíamos llegado. Y entonces llamamos a todos los medios de comunicación, todo lo que hace ellos 5 años no tenían, en una semana pusieron la calefacción, pusieron el agua caliente. Y después empezó el movimiento de renta en el sur de Bronx, producto de ese trabajo que hicimos. Yo y mi marido nomás y mi hija, y una compañera que estaba ahí. Los demás, nadie nos apoyó, ¿ya? Y más encima nos acusaron y todo eso. Bueno, se solucionó ese problema y la gente de todos solitos, de los otros edificios, nos empezaron a llamar para organizar la huelga de renta. Y así nació el movimiento en el sur del Bronx de la huelga de renta. Y después nadie los paró, ¿ya? Después, eso le digo, es pequeños ejemplos, ¿me entiendes? Después los jardines, ya que empezó el Julián en esa época a llegar con esos bulldozers, destruyó todos los jardines, y ahí hubo un movimiento grande de jardineros, que además es una parte de la cultura de la gente del Caribe, especialmente de los puertorriqueños, los dominicanos, y los pedazos de tierra que hay ahí ahora son territorios liberados, producto de la lucha de la comunidad de los jardineros. Ahí no fue nada, que porque es bueno, el otro no iba a ayudar. Entonces, los niñitos chicos nos enseñaban, ellos nos daban ideas, ¿ya? Y eran tan despiertos que uno se quedaba asombrado, ya, de la inteligencia y la capacidad que tenía. Yo me acuerdo, mi nieta, que tenía 6 años, mi hija la lleva al trabajo cuando llevan los niños al trabajo. Entonces yo estaba con el teléfono así mirando y llega el jefe de mi hija para congraciarse con mi hija y congraciarse con la niñita. Le dice, ¿qué es lo que estás mirando? Entonces le dice, estoy viendo a los faraones de Egipto. Ella tenía como 5 años. Y entonces va el jefe y se acerca y le dice, pero yo no veo nada. Y mi nieta le dice, ¿y no tienes imaginación? Imagínate una niña de 5 años que le diga que no tiene imaginación al jefe, ¿ya? Entonces, mira la mentalidad, ¿entiendes? De los niños, si tienen esa agilidad, no porque sean más inteligentes, sino que porque tú le estás enseñando, le estás mostrando un mundo nuevo, le estás entregando herramientas. Y de así de a poquitito hay que empezar.
I'll just echo some of the incredible things that have already been said. So organize, organize, organize from the grassroots. Yeah, this can't happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. The rise of fascism that we're seeing isn't just here in the US. This is global, from Brazil, across Europe, in the Middle East, here. This is what we're dealing with. And yeah, we have to grab these wins, whether they're small, they take a lot of work, or whether they're large. We at Code Pink spent almost close to 3 years working with our colleagues on a campaign to ask Airbnb to exit the Israeli settlements. Really a very small ask, but we didn't think we were going to get it, and we just kept working on it anyway because it didn't matter if we were going to get it. We were going to keep campaigning on it. And right as we were preparing some new materials for campaigns, I saw the headline come through my phone that Airbnb announced not only that they were pulling out of the settlements, but that they were doing so because of the persistent pressure that had been placed on them. So we take that moment, and it certainly isn't enough. There's a lot more that we need to do, but we take that moment and we let it energize us, and we get up the next morning and we organize.
Okay, so it looks like we're out of time. I think that there's going to be another speaker closing out the day, or no? No? Okay, so anyways, this was the panel on imperialism and the impact on women. Huge topic. Thank you to all the panelists for bringing it back to the grassroots, showing us how it's done and that it isn't impossible to defeat.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
See. How are you doing? Good? There was an awesome panel, so give them another round of applause. You are all too real. Thank you so much for sharing. So we were supposed to have a keynote speaker, which was a person from the landless peasant movement in Brazil, LMST. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the visa for the person. However, I want to just put in the plug that there are several events that are happening this week that I want to invite everyone to be a part of. We have declared this month and every month after this one an anti-fascist month. We're definitely aware of just on how high alert our world is because of the wave of fascism that is rising, and how much of an impact it has in our real lives every day. And so we're going to have folks that are going to be engaging with us in different conversations throughout the week. And I'll just put in the plug. This Tuesday, we'll have the presentation of a book that's called Strong Men. And so we'll have Vijay Prashad, Ninosh Garaska, Eve Ensler, and who else? And other folks, and Jody, in conversation around the book, but also around the just international scope and what we're experiencing politically in the world. On Thursday, many of us are aware of what happened in Brazil, right? What happened in Brazil? The current elections results put us even in a higher red alert in this continent, not only in Brazil, because it's not going to only affect Brazil, but there is a threat to the democracy. You know, it's been with Temer and now with Bolsonaro. We're going to have Haddad, who was, somebody got excited, here in conversation with Laura Flanders, and we're going to be talking about what is really happening in Brazil, what happened with the elections. So we invite folks to come. This is Thursday, and it's happening from 6 to 8. On Friday, it ain't over. On Friday, we're going to have a conversation with comrades from the Philippines, from Puerto Rico, from Brazil. Our comrades from the MST will be represented here in the space. We'll have cultural performances, and we're going to be talking about not only how the world is under siege, but also how people are resisting to this. Because we need to understand that for as long as there has been exploitation and oppression, there's been resistance, and that is the only reason why we're here today. Because people have resisted to be able to live. And so it is our duty. I'm not going to say it is our duty to fight for freedom. No. It is our duty to win this shit. Let's get to it. Like, it is our duty to win by any means necessary. All right? Because that's the type of space and context in which we are, by any means necessary. And so I want to thank you on behalf of the People's Forum for coming through, for sticking around. There's some of you that have been here since 9 a.m. in the morning, who had breakfast, lunch, chilled, did the workshops. Upstairs, some of the pieces that folks work through are still up there. We're going to have a sister who's going to be also doing a cultural performance in a little bit, so if folks just want to chill out. But again, if you want to take a walk upstairs, we still have some of the stuff that folks worked on. The arpilleras, the screen printing. Thank you all so much for coming, and in about 10-15 minutes, we'll be up here again presenting the cultural performance. How we doing? Good? All right, thank y'all.
Sorry, one more thing is that on our first panel we had Ale Pablo speak, and as you all may have heard if you weren't here, she is in battle for her immigration status and her right to be here. And I think this is okay. For her immigration status and her right to be here, and so we are supporting that battle because we want her to stay, and we want to, so we're accepting donations for her court case. If you don't have cash on you, Ale, what's your donation link again?
People can go on the website to keepalefree.org, and there's a support page there. And you can decide if you want to support me just my personal sustainability or legal fees. Hi. So, yes, thank you so much.